At its height, the British Empire ruled over nearly a quarter of the world's land, and almost one in every four human beings lived under its crown. But how did a small island in the North Atlantic come to dominate vast continents? And what legacy did it leave behind? Of innovation, exploitation, and contradiction. This is the story of the British Empire, its rise, its reach, its impact, and its fall. The story begins in the late 1500s during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. England was not yet the global power we think of today. In fact, it was a fragile nation, poor compared to mighty Spain, divided internally by religion, and constantly under threat from invasion. But England had something that would prove more powerful than riches or armies: an adventurous spirit. Men like Francis Drake, John Hawkins, and Walter Raleigh took to the seas, driven by a mixture of greed, curiosity, and national pride. These men were often more pirate than hero, raiding Spanish ships, stealing treasures, and mapping unknown waters. Yet in their reckless voyages, they were laying the foundations of what would one day become the British Empire. The defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 is often remembered as the moment England announced itself to the world. Against overwhelming odds, the smaller, faster English ships, aided by bad weather, repelled Spain's mighty fleet. To Elizabethan England, this was not just a military victory, it was proof that destiny was on their side. The seas, once dominated by Spain and Portugal, were now open to English ambition. But exploration required more than daring captains. It needed money. And so came the birth of something revolutionary: the Joint Stock Company. Imagine today's multinational corporations, Google, Amazon, Apple, shaping the world with their reach. The East India Company, founded in 1600, was the Amazon of its day. Investors pooled their money, risks were shared, and profits, if the voyages succeeded, were immense. This model gave ordinary merchants the power once reserved for kings, and with royal backing, they could trade, negotiate, and even fight wars in the name of England. The first colonies followed soon after. In 1607, Jamestown was founded in Virginia, the first permanent English settlement in America. Life was brutal. Disease, hunger, and conflict with native peoples threatened the colony's survival. Yet from this fragile beginning, a pattern was set. Colonies would feed England with raw materials, and in return they would receive goods, protection, and governance. Or at least, that was the promise. Tobacco became Jamestown's lifeline. Europeans quickly grew addicted to smoking, and tobacco exports boomed. Plantations expanded, and with them came another dark element of the empire's foundations: slavery. Though in its infancy in the 1600s, the demand for cheap labor to work plantations would grow, binding the empire's future to the transatlantic slave trade. Beyond America, the Caribbean islands offered even greater wealth. Sugar was called white gold, and England's appetite for it was insatiable. Colonies like Barbados and Jamaica became jewels of commerce, though their sweetness was stained with the suffering of enslaved Africans forced to toil under the sun. Back in Europe, rivalries intensified. The Dutch and the French, too, sought empires. Wars were fought not only on land, but across oceans, with ships clashing in faraway waters for dominance of trade routes and colonies. The English Navy, though still developing, became the backbone of expansion, a shield and a sword of empire. By the end of the 17th century, England had transformed. No longer a minor kingdom, it had become a rising maritime power. Its ships carried tobacco from Virginia, sugar from the Caribbean, spices from Asia, and dreams of even greater riches. The empire was still fragile, still growing, but its seeds had been planted in soil watered by ambition and conflict. The story of the British Empire had begun, not in boardrooms or palaces, but on stormy seas and distant settlements, and in the restless ambitions of a nation hungry for more.